Hello, welcome to the video. Hope you're having a great day. So I just want to share with you some thoughts on Polycarp. This claim that Polycarp knew John and some of the problems that came to light to me. Um, so one of the problems that I mentioned before is that so he born in 1869 and then lived to past 155. So right there, this suggests that he was not part of Israel. He was not. Go to Matthew 10:20 or Matthew 23, 36 and 38. Verily, I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. Now, he's talking to the apostles right in front of him. He's going to the temple, basically uh, expressing the displeasure of the old covenant. Okay. O Jerusalem, thou that killed the prophets and stone, which are sent thee, how often I would gather children together. Okay. Now he actually did have them under his wings during their gathering, during around the time of the temple. Remember, they fled. They fled out of the temple. That was the stick of Judah. As I pointed out in other videos, Peter wrote to the five churches, hinting them it's time to go. That would have been written after the book of Revelation is written. So John wrote to the seven churches in Asia. Peter wrote to the five churches in Asia. Total 12 churches. Your significance is that 12, 12 tribes. Okay. So, um, so they were the stick of Joseph that was out there. The Jews who were part of the stick of Joseph. Okay. For I say to you, you should not see henceforth till I say, blessed he who comes in the name of the Lord. Okay, but that's not what I want to point out. This right here. Behold, your house left unto you desolate. Okay. So this was fulfilled within their generation. So I figured out the date, September 22nd, in the year 8073. That was during the last half of their Yom Teruah, where First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 was fulfilled on that day, and they were gone at that point. They went to eternal life. So that suggests that Polycarp could not have been part of the house of Israel. The fact that he was still around on the earth after AD 73. Okay. So another interesting thing, Polycarp never in his writing claimed to know John. He never said a word. So I can just see somebody in the future fabricating this, getting some papyrus and write down a story about Polycarp knowing John, written from Polycarp, and making this all up, and then making the papyrus look old, and oh, look here, everybody, we got proof that Polycarp knew John. So, but anyway, these two writings have definitely been modified. Again, if you watch my videos, how easy it would have been to modify, rewrite church history in the 4th century is way easier than a person thinks, especially in the 21st century mindset. You can't do that today, obviously. So anyway, so what I want to point out is if it's true, let's just go with this for a moment, okay? If it's true that John was still alive, and so John lived up until the time of Trajan, the year 98, and Polycarp lived until 155. And let's just go with the idea that the Book of Revelation and John 3 epistles were written until late, which is false, by the way. They're all written by 86. But let's just go with that, okay? That means that when John sat down Polycarp, being his disciple, which is contrary to the mission of John, because John was supposed to go through the cities of Israel. So when he was writing the Book of Revelation, he was in the island of Patmos. That's what he was doing. Okay, he was doing this mission, and I believe it was written, Book of Revelation, written March of 8066. The sign of the Son of Man occurred on May 2nd of 8066, or 2 months later. So when Jesus said, "I am coming to you quickly," that was like within 2 months. So when he said quickly, he meant it. Doesn't mean 2,000 years later, like a lot of Christians today think. Anyway, that's the mission that John was on. Jesus was speaking to John and Peter and the other apostles, and he said this. So, second person plural, you here, that's who he's referring to. Okay. So anyway, um, but let's just go with it. Okay. And keep in mind, John was the apostle of Jews, not Gentiles. And that consisted of Jews in every nation. Okay. Acts 2:5. He's not apostle to the Gentiles. And another piece that people get confused by, remember, there's Jews in every nation. Okay. Go to Matthew 28. Gentiles were not on their radar at the time this conversation took place, Matthew 28. And Jesus spoke to them, saying, all power given to me in heaven. Now he's talking to the apostles, who were apostles of the Jews, okay? Go therefore and teach all nations, okay? All nations, Acts 2:5, okay? All nations, baptizing in the Father. So, and teaching them, I will be with you to the end of the age. Ooh, bad translation. That Greek word there is aeon. Okay, let's go to something that better translated. In the age, okay? That caused a lot of confusion with people when they see the end of the world. It's the end of their world, but the Greek word aeons used means end of the age. So what age you talk about? The age of the temple represented. When the temple was destroyed, marked the end of the age. This conversation took place in the year 8030. 40 years later, 8070, destroyed, the end of the age. Okay. So, anyway, yeah. So again, John, that's his mission. That is the biblical narrative. Okay, but let's just go with what most people believe. That was written in the 90s. His epistle. That John lived in the 90s, and he was actually a apostle Gentile all of a sudden. That would mean that John sat down with Polycarp as his disciple, Polycarp being disciple of John. Okay, we just go with it. Okay, this false claim here. I am an Aristotelian. That means that all the books in the New Testament are written except for Revelation and the 3 epistles of John. Don't you think that John would have told Polycarp, hey, Polycarp, these books are inspired, except for the ones that have not written yet, Revelation and the 3 epistles? Don't you think he's going to disciple them, that he's going to share with the inspired writing in the New Testament? Okay? Or try to get access to it? But not a word from Polycarp. Okay? But just the logic here. And there, so, yeah, so Polycarp, let's say he started getting discipled at the age of 10. That would have been 79. That's long after the prophecy of Matthew, this was fulfilled. Matthew 23:38 was fulfilled, which would make Jesus a prophet if that was the case. See, people don't realize it, but when you believe in this stuff right here, you make Jesus out to be a false prophet. And anyway, yeah, so that would have been plenty of time from 79 to 98, so 19 years. Yeah, 19 years. For John to figure out. Now again, John had to have conversations with Paul. Okay, how do I know that? You should go to Colossians 1:23. This is written by Paul. If indeed you continue in the faith, now I write in the church of Colossians, as firm established and steadfast, now wait for the hope of the gospel that you have heard, was proclaimed in all creatures under heaven, on which I, Paul, was made a minister. So a minister, not just him, but the other apostles as well. So in order to know every creature under heaven, he would have had conversations with the other apostles. Now, if you go to the picture here, so here Paul and Barnabas too. Remember, they went in pairs. Okay, so they go in a pair, these go in a pair, these go in a pair. They went out. Okay, so he would have had conversation with them where they went, and that would include John. John had to have known that Paul was making these writings. Okay, so to not know that have the canon put together of the New Testament, all except for the one they hadn't written yet at that point, go to show that it's highly unlikely that John was being a rabbi or a teacher to Polycarp. Okay? Just makes it even more unlikely. All right. So anyway, so the fact that Polycarp is still around is like he was not part of Israel. John would not have been binding and loosing, which is a phrase that applied only to how to Israel, to Polycarp. Okay, we go to see Matthew 18:18. Okay, so disciple there. Okay, starts off with the word disciples, and then you, second person plural, referring to the disciples. Okay, they were binding and loosing. Okay, it wasn't just Peter. So this tells you that they also, the disciples, plural, also had the keys in the kingdom, bind and loosen. Okay, and a Catholic author said, well, it doesn't say the word key here, but if you used the inductive method properly, Matthew 16, what were the keys for? It's for binding and loosing for the kingdom. And again, it only applies to the house of Israel, this phrase, okay? Gentiles were not in the scene. For the Gentile, the phrase grafted in, Romans chapter 11, was used applying to Gentiles. That was written by Paul, who's the apostle to Gentiles, okay? So anyway, yeah, I think that pretty much all I'd say. So this is clearly fabricated. This has been modified. I yeah, anytime you see the word Rome in a church father writing or bishop, you really have to exercise discernment. Okay, what's going on here? All right. And Polycarp was in Smyrna, which is right here. Okay. So yeah, anyway. So again, I believe Eusebius was trying to reverse the decline of Rome, trying to centralize the church around Rome, and that helped solidify Rome and reverse its decline. And matter of fact, by the end of his life, he had accomplished that goal at the end of Constantine's life as well. He died nearly around the same time, very close. He accomplished that mission. So how to do that? He centralized the church and state around Rome. Before, it was just the state that centralized and it was declining. And Eusebius, being the spiritual advisor to Constantine, tried to merge the church with it. And then that created a problem later on. Thus the need to create the position of a pope. As I point out in one of my videos in the Council of Syriaca, or it's the council in the year 342, okay, where the emperor at the time, which Emperor Constantine, the son of Constantine, he had the final authority over doctrine. So the church was in a really bad position at that point. The only way they could pull out of the way from the state by creating a position such as a pope to be able to get that power back to the church. Okay, so anyway, that's all I want to say. So that, first of all, Polycarp did not make one word about it, and John was not apostle to the Gentiles, the apostle to Jews. Paul and Barnabas were apostle to Gentiles. And this clearly indicates that Polycarp, the fact that he lived to 155, he was not part of the house of Israel. So therefore, John would not spend the time. John would have been gone by the year 8073. That was the last year. Polycarp would have only been 4 years old. So, and the writing to Smyrna was only as he was passing through. In all likelihood, after John book of Revelation got on his horse, gone back to Jerusalem, and would have been with them the 1,335 days at the end of 1212, and then fled to Petra. If John was still alive at this point, in all likelihood, if there's any apostle that would have been alive during the 1335 days and make it through all the way to their gathering, from Jerusalem to Petra, it would have been John, because he was the most intimate with Christ. Alrighty. So anyway, I'll just stop here. Thank you very much for watching. Something to think about, ponder on, and hope you have a great day. All right.